Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Day 4 of Climate Week. Thanks so much for joining us. I am honored to be with these 3 very impressive individuals. We're going to start out with a quick round of introductions, and we'll start with Breene. Tell us about yourself and what you're working on.
Hi, my name is Breene Murphy. I'm the president of Carbon Collective Investing. We are the home of Climate Smart Investing, which we created the first fossil fuel-free default option for 401ks, 403bs at employers. So when you go to work, a lot of times you get hired and you get nervous about signing up for your 401k and you're like, I have so much work to do, you forget about it. Well, the default option usually has about 8 to 10% invested in fossil fuels. Not that many people want it for both ethical and economic reasons. And so we've created an alternative for companies to be able to provide, like his company, So that's what we do. We also have individual investing, and we have some asset management, which is like exchange traded funds, ETFs. And so that's what we do.
Perfect. Monique?
So I'm Monique Aiken. I am Managing Director at the Investment Integration Project. That is one of 3 hats that I wear in the sector. I am also a co-founder of a nonprofit collective called Make Justice Normal. And I also am in stealth mode with a fund called the Restarter Fund that we're looking to stand up, hopefully beginning the capital raise later this year. I am also a contributing editor at Impact Alpha. I had a podcast called The Reconstruction in 2021 with Impact Alpha, and also a podcast with Make Justice Normal called Into the Record. I also have a published children's book, and I'm a mom. And did I say I'm busy and I don't sleep? Yeah. So the main job, though, at TIP is connecting systems thinking with investing. We are sort of at the strategy side of what is it going to take to have a door number 2 for the world and for the financial market. This term of art that the 2 co-founders coined 10 years ago, system level investing, is a way to connect the dots between systemic risk and what investors do and the feedback loops to the real world. And so we have an approach to it, frameworks, and ways to deliver on this thought for a lot of folks, including a platform to help folks learn about it in their own place and begin implementations called SAIL, the Systems Aware Investing Launchpad. I'm also from New Jersey. I speak fast. If you want me to slow down, just do a little dial to slow me down. Or so if
Finally got him to move. It now feels like the silent disco that we're looking at.
Exactly. So show some hand signals because we can't really get the feedback with the headphones on, but it's kind of fun. I really love it. I do love a silent disco, but up to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Ajoku. I am with Capricorn Investment Group. Capricorn was founded in 2000 as the family office of Jeff Skoll. Jeff Skoll is the founding president of eBay. We manage his personal capital as well as the endowments of the Skoll Fund and the Skoll Foundation. Capricorn was truly founded as an alternative to investing and philanthropy. The Capricorn team and Jeff wanted to imagine something different with the capital. And we were impact investing before the term was coined in 2007. We have since grown to manage $13 billion across 2 offices. There's 40 of us, and we partner with mission-driven investors to manage the total of their endowments. And we also have venture and growth funds focused on climate deep tech solutions, as well as a GP stakes fund where we support the next generation of sustainable asset managers.
Beautiful. And finally, my name is Carillo. I am the founder of Illuminate. We have a sustainable investments app that gets your investments out of fossil fuel and votes at all the companies that you're invested in to push for change. Secondly, I am the global lead of technology at Anthesis. It's a sustainability consultancy. So if anyone's very interested in the consulting space, happy to catch up afterwards. Full disclosure, my 401k is with Breene at Carbon Collective. So let's start baselining here of the landscape. Everyone here works in climate or finance or at the intersection of climate and finance. We want to get into more of the day-to-day so you can picture what everyone here on this stage is doing on a day-to-day basis. Breene, let's start with you. What does a day-to-day look like at Carbon Collective and how you're helping your members?
Thank you. So the first thing I'd say, this will start as a very annoying answer, and then it will get more helpful. The day-to-day can change a lot. So that's the annoying part. You're Breene, that is in no way helpful, and I'm aware of that. But I'll at least give you a framework that starts to get into how it is helpful. So we know at Carbon Collective that we are trying to get more 401ks and 403bs to be using our services. So a lot of it comes down to on a big picture level, usually the start of the year, and then quarterly, it's where are we at? What are our clients really need? How can we build out our services really well? We call them design spikes, where a member of our team will do deep dives into the subject, do interviews with the other members of our team, all the problems that we're seeing as it relates to that problem. We'll come back with recommendations. We'll have answer that will come out of it. And from that, we'll start to have very clear goals that will help inform the rest of the quarter Now on Mondays, we always start with reviewing those metrics. We always do a retro of like what went well. This is very important. A lot of times when people do retros, they overly focus on what didn't go well. But we're a big believer that you need to like double down on where you're strong and not where you're weak. It's like a lot of times it's like where you're weak is like you just need other people to help you or something like that. So building around strengths, and then as it comes down through the rest of the week, then you have like the tasks that you've agreed with your team to do. So for me, I have a very specific role on the team. It's usually like strategic partnerships and then business development and then content writing. Like those are like the three main things. So if you see me on LinkedIn, like I'm posting every day and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe, where do you get the time? It's because we make time for this. So that's part of it. I'm at events like this. I'm organizing my own events too. That helps on both the business development and the strategic partnerships. Because the strategic partnerships is like will help us get access to larger pools of capital that will help us divest more and reinvest more in climate solutions. So my personal work is meeting with people, understanding their needs, helping solve their solutions, understanding ERISA law, how to provide that, and then continuing to think of like other reasons to be like generally helpful, because it's a really long decision cycle with talking about investing, no matter what it is, but 401ks especially. And so building trust is just important. So I try to do that as much as I can.
Similarly, and as any busy job is, every day is different. But, tip for my day job, we are a consulting firm that also has applied research. So we are publishing, we are consulting directly with clients and doing bespoke solutions to them related to system level investing. And we're also building the platform. So I do not have a degree in computer science, but somehow I manage the developers. Good luck with that, everyone. But I'm learning a lot. And I think partly this is emergent space. System level investing is a term of art only coined 10 years ago. And so as we are building and talking to the leaders and the investors who are out there beginning to do, we are cataloging it. We're putting case studies together of best practice. So I'm writing, we're consulting, we are doing the interviews with the field to test our theories. We are building frameworks. We are putting them into the platform. As you said, every day is different, but I think partly what is our goals? We're doing a lot of the same things, but at different altitude, because our frame of reference is institutional investors for the most part, both in the intermediary and asset owners. That's the folks that we talk to most of the time. And we are trying to move the needle. How do we connect all of our work to the system level? Because we all exist in the system level. So the opportunity is there for us to extend all the asset classes, any investor type, to be part of the solution, because door number one, the path we're on, is certain destruction. Lots of details underneath that, but that is the trajectory. Lots of folks have modeled things, but how can we both think about some of these systemic risks, climate changes, but one, and do something about it? Because if we were to stabilize the climate, think about these intersecting risks, there is a chance. And so we're hopeful that system level investing is the chance we all need. And we need to build a body of evidence about it. We need to track who's doing it, who's doing what, who's doing better. So our platform is meant to help folks understand this as a strategy, implement the strategy, diligence this as a strategy, and measure and manage to system level goals, not just the idiosyncratic goals at an individual investment and not just at their portfolio. So we're figuring it out as we go. And at the same time, we think it's the hopefulness that you might have for the financial sector to be part of the solution.
I think like the two of them said, every day is different. I will say I am on our outsourced chief investment officer platform side of the house. That's kind of truly Capricorn's bread and butter, managing the endowments, the portfolios of mission-driven investors. My day could be trying to integrate a foundation's very specific mission across all asset classes and spending time with the programmatic team, with our manager research team, with the broader ecosystem to understand what can be market rate, what may be impact first, and what the institutional risk and horizon is of a different organization. It could also look like this, convening like-minded investors to talk about how we could allocate more capital to climate, the most pressing issue of our time. And it could also look like spending time with our clients and spending time with their next generation of children or of asset owners to understand how they could integrate and how they could create their legacy from their family values into their portfolios, into their separate business lines, their foundations. Very dynamic, like my peers here.
So back over to you, Jessica, and then Monique afterwards. You both come from traditional financial backgrounds, Goldman Sachs, major banks. What skill sets did you bring into Impact that have been really helpful for you? And then what skill sets did you need to learn while you were developing this career?
At my previous time, the financial analysis, the risk management, and the client engagement was very critical to my early career. That, I believe, translates very well to my time now working at the intersection of climate and finance. And I would say new competencies that has been very important is really systems level thinking. Climate change, again, is the most pressing issue of our time, but it also provides us with this large opportunity to reimagine business models, urban planning, agriculture, health, and how that could change. So really taking a step back and thinking what can be changed when we allocate more capital to a solution, and what are we funding, and how can our portfolios look like if this is the future that we choose to advance. That is what I think has been new in my new role.
Beautiful. Monique?
So yes, I started my career in investment banking, got an MBA, did the traditional investment banking route for a few more years. And then I thought my life purpose cannot be helping companies manage the volatility of the income statement, because that was in derivatives when I was in the path out of finance. And around the time when I was leaving business school, impact investing was not coined yet. But as the term started to become more popular, I thought this is probably the right place for this background in finance that I have. I went to Georgetown undergrad, have a degree in international politics, but I was doing a lot of things on the side of my desk to help make the world a better place. Then the impact world is basically finance to the power of impact across 50 or more themes. So there's so much complexity to all of this. So the background in finance was certainly like an underpinning, let's call it of scaffold, to how do we marry these impact themes to do something about it that is effective. And that transition period for me was sometime at the Clinton Global Initiative, which was essentially social good university for me. So you put a background in finance with social good university, the baby is impact investing. And as I learned more about it and connecting that to systems thinking with meeting the two co-founders of TIP, I thought that this is the right conversation. This is the future, is we need to think in systems. We need to all be focused on the context in which we all operate. So the skills that I developed along the way were thinking in systems and how do we apply that, getting really good at asking questions, both as a podcaster and as a strategy consultant. And some of those things are translatable into any career. We need better questions for our time so that we can deliver on the answers we need for tomorrow.
Great. Breene, so your focus is on employee benefits, 401ks, retirement plans. In my opinion, Carbon Collective is the leader in this space, helping tons of employees across
Not
the U.S.
biased in any way.
What's that? In my opinion. How does someone break into the retirement plan space, the employee benefit space, with a climate focus, and what opportunities are out there?
Okay, so this is an area that I would consider a very new part of climate finance. With any new area means that you have to be thinking about how to invent yourself. Now, what I would say is like there are certain resources and frameworks that are already out there that you can take advantage of. So like, for example, Project Drawdown has a job functions action guide for HR leaders. You could read that and start to get it, but you also need to know like what's going through with HR leaders. And right now at this stage, these people leaders are being, as someone that looks at the markets all the time, like one of the things that just came out that's very strange is we're seeing a lot of negative reports in the job market, but the performance of the stock market is good. And they're calling this jobless growth, right? Well, that affects a lot of people, right? Specifically the strategic thinking of HR leaders, because now they're trying to think about how to like integrate AI so they don't have to hire new people, but they need to still like be increasing revenue. So it's like understanding what that means for them, that they're a group of people that have even less than they had before. And then you have to figure out like what resources are being shared with them, like a Project Drawdown job function action guide. And then you have to find your balance. So for us, what we did is we started with individuals and helping them. We had a lot of them were founders, and they were like, hey, we really can't get good investing options at our company that we just founded. And this is a problem at the last place. And so we're like, okay, we actually know how to do that. And so it was about taking what we knew, looking at how to be a good fiduciary, which in our view, if you are not including sustainable investment options, you are a worse fiduciary, right? Because you're not thinking in the best interest of your employees. Because if you're looking at what's happening in the markets, like oil is very much underperforming right now. And a lot of the policies of the current administration are cratering it. Tariffs, like oil trades across the border every day. You don't want tariffs. If you have to do a bunch of expansion and drill, you need cheap materials to buy. Well, guess what? Tariffs make all those materials to do like more expensive. So it's harder to expand. Like oil has been really hit hard. So you don't want to have you want to at least have an option to diversify away from that, right? And so if you're thinking about this area, you have to understand like how do they tie into the market. B Labs, B Corporation, they have their standards that they also will share with people around HR. But just knowing that the main place that HR people are looking at is going to be on that 401k and 403b. So that's what I'd leave you with. But you do have to be creative because it's very new. I'll give one example is Scope Zero at I'm not sure if you ever heard of them. Caitlin High Street and Lizzie Kolar, they founded it. It's a carbon savings account, and it's an employee match to help you decarbonize your life, right? So electric vehicles, induction ovens, like that sort of thing. And that I think is like a really good example of someone being thoughtful about wanting to do something and solving that larger issue. But you have to be novel right now. And that I will say it's a challenge to do that.
Great answer. Monique, I'm going to list some of the organizations that you've led or started. I'm going to miss some.
Enough time for that.
The Investment Integration Project, Restarter Fund, Make Justice Normal. I'm sure there's many more. If someone wants to be at this intersection of the way I look at that work and the connection I see is that the financial system can be very unfair to minorities, to people of low-income communities. And through this work, you have their back. There's a lot of people out there that want to be engaged in this work, want to be working for these organizations or start their own. What advice would you give to these people to get started?
I was on a panel around careers maybe 10 years ago with SEO, Sponsors for Education Opportunity, which was one of the ways I got my start in finance. I'm a big fan of all the programs. I did Swigo and all the rest, all the programs. This gentleman said, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name right now, but he said, fall in love with the problem. And then you'll be able to stick to it. You will fill the gaps in your understanding to be able to figure out what's next in order to keep solving the problem. And the problems of our day are always evolving. And so if you fall in love with the problem instead of a solution that you might have randomly come up with sometime, you won't be a hammer looking for a nail. You'll be trying to figure out what's best for the nail. And so this is partly like, who do you center in solutions? One of the things that you mentioned, Restarter Fund, I'm thinking about small business owners who failed during COVID or due to climate disaster. And there's a system failure. Think of those founders as failed business owners instead of something that occurred to them, which was called a force majeure. So in my life these days, and as I figured out my purpose, which is the name of the nonprofit, Make Justice Normal. So part of what the through line is the systems change work that we're talking about. Ultimately, we need to center justice in that. And how we do that is thinking about yesterday's wrongs and how to right them, and also thinking about creating solutions for the most marginalized. So the Make Justice Normal work is trying to name the fact that we're all just used to injustice. And the systemic failures and the systemic risk that we're talking about is because of historical injustice and privileging certain people and structures through the regulatory. There's all these layers of how we ended up here, but what we have is today forward. So what are you going to do next? And so some of the ways that I encourage young people to think about is like, what is the problem that you'd like to solve in this world? How does that meet up with your purpose, if indeed you know it, or at least gaps in your learning of understanding of the world? Marry those two things and work towards, if indeed an entrepreneurial spirit is something that you possess, what do you think the world needs? Because we need it. And there's a great quote from Octavia Butler that I'm going to just share right now. I don't want to get it wrong because you do not want to get her wrong. And this is just, I think, guidance. There's no single answer that will solve all of our future problems. There's no magic bullet. Instead, there are thousands of answers at least, and you can be one of them if you choose to be.
Beautiful. What problem do you want to solve? I really like that. I'll start with Jessica on this one, but we can go down the line. So investing in finance can be very intimidating no matter what level of understanding you have about it. There's a lot of complexities and moving parts. But you may be listening and you may think, wow, I really like what everyone here is talking about. I want to work in climate finance. If someone does not have this quote unquote traditional skill set of financial modeling or stock investment research, many other skill sets like that, what, Jessica, would you recommend to people are the pathways that they can enter climate finance, be it storytelling, communications, many other ways?
I think the ones that you alluded to are fantastic. Storytelling. I would like to highlight policy work is very critical on the investment side and just on the broader side. I would also highlight community engagement is extremely important as we think about the just transition and who is involved in shaping the decisions and the effects of where these solutions and how fast these should be deployed. Another one I would talk about is philanthropy. I think in philanthropy, there is not only philanthropic capital, but there is such a need for public, private, and philanthropic partnerships to scale and at the speed that we need this to be. So those are the three I would highlight.
So I'll just share, there's a role for anyone who wants to be in this work. You can be an accountant at a hair salon, or you can be an accountant at an investment bank. So what functional role are you good at? And you can apply it to the sector. It's, again, to the complexity of the financial market, to the complexity of the impact world, to these cross-cutting systemic risks. There's so much opportunity to be part of it. So we think about the supply side, asset owners and others. We think about the intermediary space, which is investment banks and investment managers of all stripes and fund managers. And the demand side, it's a startup, and an individual company, and the way that and everyone needs a climate strategy today. And then there's all these things in ecosystem where I would put consultants and the regulators and the people who work on measuring management, people in communications to tell the stories of these, either the asset owner supply side, the demand side, the intermediary space. There's so much opportunity to leverage pretty much every kind of skill set that you might happen to have, and just understanding, where do you fit? Where do you want? Do you want to be an accountant at a hair salon, or do you want to be an accountant at an investment bank? You're still an accountant. So part of it is, again, what problem do you want to solve? What gets you up in the morning and keeps it interesting for you? And find that space, because the overlay of the entire financial market and the opportunity is there for folks to use the skills, whichever they happen to have, even if they're not necessarily in an allocator seat. But that's not for everyone, and maybe that's not what you even want to do. But there's still plenty of room to bring talent into the space and find the place that you can be sort of like maximizing your talents to deliver on the change that you seek.
I think those are really good answers. The one thing that I wanted to give to all of you, I don't know all of you, so I don't have the background to know what are you doing and all that. So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is we've been living in this system that is a post Bretton Woods system. So Bretton Woods was created in the wake of World War II as a financial system that basically, the very simplistic way is if we are imperialists and colonialists and we're fighting wars all the time, we're going to kill each other, and that's bad, right? And so the answer was well, if we do business with each other all the time, that's really good. But it came with some very inherent assumptions that are not true, which is infinite growth is there, that it's good to keep vestiges of colonial infrastructures, financial. Argentina is one that pops to my mind that's had a really, really hard time with the lending structures that we've put in place. And so, yeah, I mean, the list is very long, so I'm very sorry about that. But the system is eroding. We reached peak globalization in 2017. We have not established a new system. To be honest, I would call all of you to really think about what system should we be creating, because we need all of your help. Very, very seriously, economics at its heart is how we help each other. It's you give someone on the very far corner of the globe a couple dollars, they might design something for you or make something for you. And that would not happen without money. And how we determine the rules of money is really important. So I think that's the first thing I want to say is we are leaving a system that was stable, and we have not designed the next system, which hopefully is regenerative and just and all of that stuff. What I'd also say is there are a lot of solutions that we have not yet scaled up. I mean, Matthew right here, he worked at Project Drawdown, but the Project Drawdown has been one of my favorite resources for looking up what are these solutions. They just launched their new Drawdown Explorer, so they have even more detailed solutions. That's been one of my favorites, but there's a lot of other ones. International Energy Agency, Rewiring America has a bunch of stuff, and then you can go in consultancies, but I don't want to give them a bunch of love. No, I'm just I'm sorry. They
company excluded.
No, but I'm not. Yeah, okay. There's our disagreement. Now we're going to go back to agreeing. So there's all these solutions that are out there, and the last thing I wanted to leave you with is we all live in an attention economy in addition to a regular economy, and that attention economy is like looking at your phone where you're going all over the place, and there's all these advertisements. And the corner of all these advertisements is what are you missing? And so there's this feeling of not good enough. And I need you to take a fucking break. I'm sorry. And listen to yourself and go, what am I good at? What am I actually good at? And start to layer it up to those problems that add up to a better economy. So that's my request of all of you. Bring your A game.
I'm coming right back to you.
Agree.
Yeah. Let's talk about content and storytelling, which I believe is probably one of the biggest gaps that job seekers can be filling and can be doing a great job at. Breene, back over to you. Post every day on LinkedIn. Someone out there may be thinking, how do I come up with a new idea every single day and then write it? And then what if I don't get enough likes? Like, that's really intimidating. How do I keep going every single day?
Yeah.
What tips would you give to people on storytelling and content and how to practice that to keep improving? Because that's one of the main things that we need to look for.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a little bit of a nerdy bias here. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I actually have a master's in fiction, so I've studied the way in which stories work. But one of my favorite descriptions of stories is like only one rule for a story, and it's things are not as they seem, right? And so that's a good way to be like, you lead in with some hook and it has to change. So I want to tell like a story about this morning that I think really helps, right? Which is, I go check in at the nest. I'm like, I think a lot of people are really underappreciated. So I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Thank you so much for checking people in and helping us out. And I was like, and the woman goes like, I can't complain. I was like, I can complain, like the world is not perfect, like, and so like when you start there of like, what do you like, like falling in love with the problem is also like, okay, if that is a problem, then what are the options? Like, and also again, what I was saying in the last comment is, what are you actually good at? So it's both the problem that you're really concerned with and also like a skill set that you have. People all the time go, gosh, humans are idiots or some form of that. And you're like, if they only knew what I knew, like either of those two things is a very good source of starting to share what you know out there. And then the other thing I would start to say is like, there are storytelling paradigms. Those storytelling paradigms like change over time. So like a big one that we've been in for a very long time is you have to sacrifice to help solve climate change, right? And that's one that does not feel good, right? When you hear it, you're like, well, you have to sacrifice. And there are portions in which that is still true. Like I don't want to, because I think it's important to be true. But now there's like a new set of stories and paradigms that can start to be true, right? And I'm telling you this so that, if you're learning about the problem that you really fall in love with, like Monique said, if you understand the expertise that you can share with people. And if you know the storytelling paradigm that is starting to change, it can help you start to think of more content. Like a good example of this is like, I have an electric vehicle, I charge at home, it's really convenient. You know what I've started to notice? How creepy gas stations are. I'm serious, you guys are laughing, but like, they're dirty, they have stains, like there's stuff all over, they have like crappy candy, they're trying to make me fat, they have like dirty, flimsy plastic that's like somehow floating through there, like these terrible ghosts, like it's awful. You start to see these things and it's like reimagining what is sacrifice. Now we are sacrificing by staying in this paradigm. Like I have creepy plastic ghosts in my life for when I have to drive my gasoline car. And so it's like, if you have those three things, if you have what problem you want to solve, if you have what you're really good at, and knowing that the storytelling paradigm is changing, I think you'll find even just walking around here, there's so many other stories that you'll be able to tell, right? And you just have to start telling them.
Great. Monique, climate, content, and storytelling. What do you think?
So I'll bring it to imagination. So I think what we have generally is a failure of imagination, because if you don't know what to do next, why would you do anything that you're not already doing? Like, what would I do? So I think both this is macro and micro and personal and the system. So we need to imagine that something else is possible. So if we were to do so, then we might say, well, what would I do to make that new world, usher it in? And how can I be part of ushering that in? Some of that is art. Some of that are novelists. Some of that is science fiction, because there was a time when it would be really weird to have a phone call that had a video screen when I was growing up. And now my son is like, who are we going to FaceTime? So someone imagined that. That was someone's dream. And we are living in people who came before us dream of what they imagined the world to be. Some of that was not meant for me to have an education. That was someone's dream. But we are in a new world. And what's next? So what would you want to imagine? And we should start building towards that, because the rate of change is the only constant and it is accelerating. And so what can we imagine now that needs to be, and what is that future we're building towards? I would like it to be a world that is more stable, that is where my son can breathe. He's just turned 6. And that we have fruits and vegetables, which means we need the bees. what do we need to change about the system, about what we're doing very much today to make those things possible? And let's do that. And some of the work is around figuring out what's the most elegant next step that gets to the goals. And for us in our work at TIP, it's achieving system health. The system health goals are more adaptability, greater connectivity between people, and that it's like designing for the most marginalized and figuring out how do we change these calcified past energy grids. These are once you think about what you want for the system and the future, then we can fill in the gaps about what we need to get there.
Great. So last couple questions here. Jessica, I want to talk money with you. We're talking about finance and business, and we're talking to a lot of job seekers out there. When it comes to climate finance, what can someone expect about the compensation that you may receive in these roles? Is it similar to traditional finance roles in banks? Is it different? How do you think about that?
It's such a good question. And I'm happy to answer it, actually. The number one thing I'd say in any job is you need to negotiate. If it's a climate job, if it's a traditional job, you need to negotiate. I will say that there are opportunities for well-funded climate firms to pay you at market rate with traditional firms. There are a lot of climate opportunities in the philanthropic space, so there you may receive a haircut to your salary. But I just want to overly emphasize that it is very possible to receive similar pay doing very important work, such as climate finance.
Great. Now, this was not part of the schedule, but we're going to do a rapid fire. What would everyone leave the audience with in terms of something to read or watch that has impacted your work and helped you better understand the work you do every day? Breene, I'll start with you.
To be honest, that's like a really challenging question because there's been so much good thinking around the pathway we have to a more regenerative economy. I would say someone that I think is really good on this is Kate Rayworth's Donut Economics. That's something that I really liked. I thought it was really valuable, giving a good framework. But to be honest, there's just so many good books. So and there's so many good online resources and podcasts. Dive in. There's a lot, but that's my one thing.
Perfect. Monique?
Of course, because you put me on the spot, I can't think of the novel, but there is a new emerging sector in science fiction called cli-fi. And this book is considered cli-fi. Talk to me later. Link me on LinkedIn. I'll get it to you.
Ministry for the Future.
Ministry for the Future.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Octavia Butler.
Octavia Butler. I quoted her earlier. There's so much to read, but part of it is that why I mentioned Ministry for the Future is that these words about climate change, when we talk in data and we talk about 1 degree and what does that mean, it's hard to imagine what that looks like in someone's life.
Yes.
And the point is, we are trying to make people's lives better. That is the ultimate end game. People, planet, we're all connected. So if the planet is not healthy, your lives are not better. It's the system is interlinked. Why I mentioned that book is that it pierces through. It pierces through the data that becomes charts and spreadsheets, and we know data doesn't move people, but stories do. And one of the reasons we write stories is that we can see a new imagination of both maybe its worst possible outcomes, which is where the book opens. I won't give it away, but also where could it go? And so,
Climate finance book.
And so I would say that's one way to begin, and also to think about the publications that are basically talking about what's happening today. I'm also contributing editor at Impact Alpha. That's a news magazine for the impact space. And so figure out what is going on. You see the breadth. You can start to learn more about what you want to learn more about and figure out where's there a gap in your understanding, particularly for the young people, and just go towards filling that gap. That's step one. Learn as much as you can and be on a forever learning journey. And I think they say the path is made by walking. So learning something new gets you to the edge of an understanding, which gives you the opportunity to learn something else that will bring you on the path that's meant for you.
There are so many, but I would say I recently spent time with Naomi Klein's book. I think Climate and Capitalism, maybe it's more eloquently titled than that, but that has been very, very informative, I think, of what has been done from a policy standpoint, what should be done, and across different sectors. And I thought that was kind of a great intro to understanding really how deeply rooted capitalism has been to the mess that we're in.
Great. And it's only fair if I put myself on the spot. I promise I thought about this as they were talking. The book I would recommend, it's had a huge impact on me. It's called Fire Weather. It's a great story about the intersection of climate and business in the Alberta sands, about an area that was heavy on drilling for a type of oil and had made people very wealthy, had essentially boomed this town. but has been devastated by wildfires over the past 10, 20 years. And so I think we need to look more into these stories that are about people, that tell these stories about how the climate is changing and how it has impacted businesses, and will continue to. So that has always stayed with me. I think about that book all the time, so I'd recommend that. And that wraps up our panel. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, for listening. I wish we had time for questions, but Christy's telling me I got to keep it moving. So thank you so much.